bring in President Coach Steve Cleveland. You had this process yourself with BYU guys as well. Hafa Araujo is a top 10 pick for you, but Paul George as well. What's it like from the coaching perspective to handle this situation? You want for the best for the guy, but you also want him to play on the team the next year.
You know, it was a kind of a unique situation because we were under NC2A probation and all sorts of allegations and things. And so we only had 7 or 8 scholarships. And getting Paul to come to BYU was a pretty big thing.
That would have been nice to get him to BYU, right?
Coming to Fresno State was a pretty big get for us. But he was, I think he's 6'7", about 180. You know, he wasn't an NBA body. But over a period of 2 years, he got better. In his sophomore year, he was about 15-7. But he had some big moments on national TV, got some attention. We started getting scouts coming in, and then at the end of the year, he came in and said, "You know, I want to go through the workout process." And you know, here's a young man that you want to make sure he takes care of himself and his family. I said, "Let's go for it. Let's get this thing going." Well, here's the one the one thing everyone needs to understand. Those workouts are really important. I know Chad Ford has he has his board and all those kinds of things, and he's talked to NBA scouts and getting a feel for it. But at the end of the day, it only takes one team out of 32 to like you. Paul went in there, had great workouts, like Mika will have great workouts. He's a high-character guy. He's demonstrated that he's not going to be a problem on or off the court. All those things are very important in the NBA. And the fact that Mika does have a pretty high ceiling. Now, he is 22 years old, and they do like to get him young. At that time, Paul was about 19. But through his workouts, his stock just went up and up and up. Now, as a coach, and I'm hearing all these things, and I'm thinking to myself, this guy was going to take me to the promised land. You know, I mean, this was going to be how we were going to turn this thing, and he was going to be a really special player. But when it came down and we sat down with him and his mom and dad, and it was like, this is the thing that we need to do. And back then, they didn't have these circumstances they have now where they go to May. I mean, you had to make a decision. And it was pretty painful. It was awkward. But at the end of the day, it was the best thing for him. And obviously, it's played out that way. Just a little side note. I was at a Pacers game. I went and saw Paul, and his parents were in town. They told me they were going to come in town. So when I was in Indiana, I went and saw him. And the parents sat down with me. And they apologized to me. They said, "We're so sorry." I said, "You're sorry for what?" I know it was difficult when Paul left. I said, No. You don't have to apologize to me. I said, that was the best decision he ever made for you and the family and everyone. But it is difficult. It is difficult for a coach because there's a plan. Coach Rose has a plan for Eric Mika.
And he is the anchor point of this plan.
He is the anchor point of the plan. And so you're going to support him, and you're going to love him, and you're going to just have to buck up if he leaves and say, hey, well, we're going to have to find guys. I mean, they're on the road right now recruiting. Okay, so they know they're preparing for this and all the other needs that they might have in the program. So it isn't, I would just say awkward is the best way to put it. I mean, you want what's best for these young people, and Eric's not getting any younger. And the older he gets, the less opportunity he's going to get in that league.
How surprised were you yesterday when this news came out?
Not at all. No. He had a good year, and you're on national TV so much that whether there are scouts there or not, they can watch those games or get on Synergy and watch the games. They can evaluate him. And then probably his biggest moment was in the biggest win of the year at Gonzaga in front of a national TV audience. So doesn't surprise me. He's got size. He's got a motor. He's got a pretty good ceiling. There's a question, well, can he play the perimeter, Well, they're going to find out. And what I've learned is that if you take, this is their mindset. This is an NBA GM's mindset. We can take him for a year. He'll have a strength coach. He'll have a nutrition coach. He'll have a workout coach. He'll have all these things set up for him. He'll get up 1,000 shots, 500,000 shots a day. He'll have a shooting coach. And he can grow and develop in a really short period of time that he could never do at the college level. And that's the way that they think differently. They're thinking about what he can become. That's how they're going to evaluate him, not what he is today. And I think a lot of people go, well, is he NBA ready? You know what? Probably not. But they could probably get him NBA ready in a year by working with their team, D-League, whatever it is. And all of a sudden they go, well, how did this kid make it? The same thing they did with Paul or, other players that I've had. So, I'm not surprised. I know how this works. And, I think there is a chance he'll probably come back if the things what the experts are saying. But do not underestimate those workouts, those interviews, and those competitive situations for agility, because he can run and he's athletic. They believe, they're confident enough in themselves that they can help him become the player they want him to become.
President Coach Steve Cleveland is on BYU Sports Nation. Tremendous insight, having gone through this with guys at BYU and Fresno State. It's almost awkward for the fan base now, too. Awkward's a good way to phrase it from your perspective as the coach, because what do the fans want for Eric Mika? The fans don't want Eric Mika to go pro.
No.
But Eric, when he talked, he said, well, I'm excited. My family's excited. It's like, yeah, everyone else wants you to come back and play, so it's an interesting situation
And
for him.
it hasn't happened that often here at BYU.
Let's think about it. Sean Bradley, after his mission,
Right.
gone.
Trent?
Playstead, and then have there been
No,
many?
because Travis finished.
I can't
Travis
think
Hansen
of
finished
another
his year.
early entry
Rafael
guy.
finishes. I had two of them at Fresno State, and it was devastating. It was devastating. And the second young man didn't have the NBA, NC2A collaboration to give him time. He just made a decision listening to all the voices outside, from family to agents, and it didn't work out. So thank goodness that the NBA has created this so that they can have, they can answer some of their questions. Where do I fit? And it's like, you know what, you're not quite ready yet. Perfect, I'll go back and play.
And there's more time allotted now than
yes.
even 3 years ago.
You're right.
Right?
You're right. And I think that in all fairness, I heard somebody say the other day, I wish they'd let them just stay in the draft. And even more would stay in, because some will stay in the draft and not get drafted. In fact, not just some. It happens a lot. And so why not just let them stay in the draft right to the end and then come back out? You're not signing with an agent, and then you get a complete picture of where you are and where you stand. They do that in other sports, but not college basketball or college football.
But baseball all the time.
Yeah, it happens.
All the time.
Guys get drafted, they just come in.
Exactly.
If you had 40 rounds of the NBA draft, you could do that, right? There's only two.
Exactly.
So we all know that coming back is certainly an option. Maybe it's likely. Only Eric Mika will know that ultimately.
Exactly.
But let's project. Let's say that he does stay in the draft and he goes into the NBA. What does this mean for BYU basketball next year?
Well, it's a big loss. There's no question. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's a big loss. And because he has been, as you said, the anchor. The good news is there's time. I heard Zach Zalias is back from a mission, maybe having some surgery. There's a possibility if he steps in there. I mean, if he played this year, they'd probably go to the NC2A tournament. 50% 3-point shooter, so he could possibly be a part of this equation. May or may not, I don't know. But all of a sudden, you've got four really, really good guards that have experience, that made lots of mistakes and had lots of success. And I'm thinking that over the next 3 or 4 months, there's going to be a lot of growth with this team. You've got three bigs coming back. I don't know much about them. I'm certain they're not going to replace Eric Mika, but it is more bodies. And then they have 2 or 3 or 4 months to recruit. And I know they're on the road right now, and you can bet that they are looking at bigs as well, because they have to. They have to.
Even though you have Andrus, Worthington, and Dalton Nixon coming back
All
off missions,
coming off missions, and not everybody comes back off a mission like Eric Mika did. Okay?
In fact, only one other player scored
Fit
that
it
many
in.
points.
And you've got Dastrup in the program, who hasn't really been given a chance. So, and others that are in the program, but it's tough. It's a tough deal. But it's not like the cupboard's empty. All right, and I think that 2 of those have been all WCC first-team players.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys have been all WCC guys, and Elijah Bryant was, before all the injuries and all the issues he had, everybody said he was the leader on the team last summer. I mean, he was the guy. He was directing everything, and all of that kind of fell apart with injuries and such. But their team is going to be really good, but without Eric, they're going to have to find a replacement.
When you look at what BYU did this year, and we've talked about it so much, Coach Rose changed things a little bit to get it into the post more. It was less of a guard-oriented system this year because you had such a dominant player. So if Eric is gone, I realize we're talking about a 4 versus a 5. Can Yoli Childs become the focus of the offense, similar to what they did with Mika, or will it go back to a guard-oriented system?
Well, I think there's a couple of points you can take. First of all, Yoli can play inside and score inside. You give him the ball, and all of a sudden he's a guy. I mean, he's got great lift. He can score around the rim. If I was coaching Yoli, I'd have him working on his perimeter stuff night and day for the next 5 months, so that he could stretch and pop out. When 5s can shoot, when they can pick and pop, makes all the difference. I really believe in Yoli Childs. I mean, you start looking at his freshman year and all the kind of the expectations and pressure was on this team. He handled it pretty well, and he's going to be so much better next year. So I don't think he has to be the guy, but I think with the players they have coming back, and there's some of those that they have in there, that it'll probably be a combination. But if Zach Zayla stays here, he can play the 4. And now that
was the stretch 4.
That changes everything. Every coach loves to have a stretch 4. Now you do open the floor, and now it's just Yoli or whomever in there by himself. And you know what? He's one-on-one. And if he gets doubled, then guys are ready to step up and shoot. And that's not going to be the biggest challenge that BYU has. I mean, they're going to still have to develop a culture. I think they get together Monday. They're going to have to develop a culture of guarding people. But there's pieces there, but Yoli certainly could be used in the post.
You talked about the worst case scenario. Okay, Mika leaves, then what, right? The best case is that Mika comes back, Celius somehow stays and plays, right? Now that team is a team that piques my interest.
Oh, yeah.
If Mika and Celius are there. You talked about the impact of Celius.
Oh, no.
If Mika and Celius are on that team, now what?
Well, listen, I think everyone believes, all the experts believe that BYU will be back in the NCAA tournament next year. Now, you know,
Even without Celius,
without Celius, yeah. So it's one of those things that right now we all have, you know, not we, but the coaching staff, you know, and the players and the families and probably a lot of the fans kind of have their head down. It's like, man, those last 2 losses were painful. And
we haven't felt like this in a while.
No, they were painful, and it was pretty ugly, okay, at all levels. And so that's what's fresh in everybody's minds. You got to get rid of that. You got to let it go. And you got to start focusing on how we can get better. And I know the coaching staff will do that. So if you have those 2 together, then you know what? Now you're back in the picture, and I think there's going to be great confidence that they can win this conference. And I think that championship mentality, championship basketball, where we defend, where guys guard and get after it, and there's an energy and an enthusiasm for that, along with Eric Mika coming back as a junior and everybody else having experience, you have a really special team.
I'm excited for the prospect of that. We'll see how it all plays out with Zach Celius. Best of luck to him, however that plays out. Eric Mika as well. President Coach Steve Cleveland, we appreciate the insight.
Good to be with you.
#Paul George. When he's in town, let's get some tickets. Huh?